In this video, I'm gonna answer questions as to what modifications I would like to do to my 2008 Saab 9.5 Aero SportCombi. Hello everyone and welcome to EA40, and that is the car I mentioned that is right behind me right now. It is a car that I got a few weeks ago and I absolutely love it. However, I want to make it a little bit more of mine, and also I want to make it a bit of a daily project. What do I mean by that? Well, here's the thing. A lot of times people can't really get a full-blown project car because of like space or restrictions or something like that, or maybe they just don't want to have something that's too powerful or too expensive. However, there are some touches that people would like to make the car a little bit more of their own, and that is the purpose of what I want to do with this car. I want to add some power, maybe a bit of handling modifications maybe, but then I also want to do some visual stuff and maybe a few other functional stuff to make the car a little bit more of something of my own. So I'm gonna walk around the vehicle and I'm gonna basically address a bunch of the different plans that I have as I think of them, and we'll see how you guys like them, and I would like to also know some of your suggestions on what I can do with some modifications. So let's start out with the front of the vehicle because, well, we're here and we're pointing the camera here anyway, and there are a few things that I want to do with it. We're gonna start with the front bumper because that is something that some people complain about the car not really being very good in terms of that front bumper cover. And they're mostly referring to the lower part of it because it does look a little bit boring. It's not entirely what you would expect out of a luxury vehicle. So there are a few options that I've had with this and a few things that I've thought of. It's gonna be a while because it'll take some time and space to be able to cut things out or maybe do some other grafting and modifications and stuff, but we'll see. I'm just brainstorming a bunch of things anyway. One thing I've seen a bunch of people do is with this lower part of the grille here, they would cut it out and then take a lower piece from a Chevy Impala and then they would end up putting that one on there. Apparently it's not too hard, but you know what, I haven't done such cutting before. It could probably get butchered if I did it. But that is also a bit of an idea that I can do, maybe just have like an Impala lower grille here, and that could improve the looks a little bit more. Something else I could do though is take the whole front bumper cover off and just cut off the bottom part of it, and then take the lower bumper from a Saab 9.3 and graft that on, basically mold the two together. And I've seen some people do it on their 9.5s and it does look a lot better. As for this grille, I don't fully know yet. If I could get some kind of like Hirsch style grille that would go here as well as around the headlights, that would probably look kind of cool, but it also depends what's out there. I haven't fully looked yet. The Saab Griffin badge, I'm not entirely sure yet because I do like the stock look of the badge. However, I've seen a few aftermarket ones that also look kind of cool. The amber reflectors up front, those are going to go at some point. In fact, I'm looking online to find someone from Sweden who might have the more gray reflectors that are on the European spec Saab 9.5s. So that's one of the first things that I want to do with that, because I feel like those orange reflectors, they look like band-aids and I hate them. In fact, on our Audi A8, we actually covered them up with vinyl because they just don't look good. The funny thing is, I know some Europeans actually like to have those amber front reflectors on, so I guess it's also a case of the grass is greener on the other side. Regardless, I don't want them, but someone else might. Maybe I could do a trade or something, or maybe I'll buy a European set and then maybe sell this to a European. The big thing to address though is the headlights, and there are a couple big things that I want to do with it. First of all, I want to get a European front headlight set with the xenon lights, and that's for a big reason. The US spec ones don't have certain lights in them. They're basically halogen lights, and it's all part of a flash to pass system. It's not super bright, it doesn't blind the person behind, but it is something that's used a bit more for overtaking. So that is a bit of an option. I would like to have one of that on my car. The problem is this one doesn't even have the wiring for it, let alone like the right relay and stuff. So I'd have to get a European set that would end up going on here. And so I'd have to do that. I'd have to get the right relay. If you know more about that kind of stuff, please comment down below, because I'm having a hard time figuring out that info for the 2006 and up Saab 9.5s. The other big modification that I would want to do once I get that European headlight set would be to wire in an LED light strip. And I would probably wire it off of the peanut light light from the headlight, which is kind of like a daytime running light. So I would want to get one of those LED strips, and it wouldn't exactly be a low beam kind of light, but you know how a lot of newer cars have this kind of other daytime running light design. BMWs have that angel eye design. I would like to do something a little bit similar with this. So if I can find that right kind of light strip and then wire that in, take off the housing and everything, I'm gonna try and do that. As for the whole body of the car, the funny thing was I kind of wanted a black Saab 9.5 wagon because that would allow me to do something related to plasti dip or wrapping it much easier, because black is a better base color to do it on. However, I would like to do some kind of wrap or plasti dip with it. First of all, this car is gonna need some kind of a detail. It actually looks pretty decent up close, but it would be nice to give the car a good buffing, maybe even do a bit of a ceramic coating on it if I can get the right supplies for it and stuff. If you have any ideas on what I could get, or if you want to provide me something, definitely let me know down below. So a good detail would definitely be in order for this car, but then also maybe a plasti dip or a wrap to change the color of it. I'm not entirely sure what kind of color I would want for this car. Maybe it can be like the glacier blue, because I really wanted a Saab 9.5 in that color. Alas, I couldn't get one in that color. Glacier blue could be good, maybe some kind of deeper blue, almost like royal blue, or maybe some almost darker blue, something that can almost be a little bit understated on this car, but still allows it to look pretty good. Or if I wanted to go super crazy, maybe like a Porsche Maritime blue, paint a sample kind of color that gets like a plasti dip or wrap on here. That would look pretty cool. I don't know how likely that is. It would also be probably expensive as well, so we'll see. I would probably end up plasti dipping the car first and then adding a gloss finish over it, simply because it's kind of cheaper to do a plasti dip job versus a full wrap, unless someone ends up providing the kind of vinyl for me that I'd need for the wrap. So maybe I could end up getting like a plasti dip sprayer pretty used for like $50, because I do want it to be an overall affordable project. If I can get the right plasti dip sprayer for a low cost and then get all the gallons that I would need, because I don't want to use the rattle cans, I want to use the actual sprayer for this, I would like to consider that kind of option. Also with the front, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to do with a bunch of the chrome around the vehicle. Now, the chrome does help update the vehicle a little bit more, especially compared to the black plastic that was used on my older Saab 9.5 wagon. However, I'm not entirely sure how much I love the chrome. So maybe if I can do some kind of gloss black or something like that, I'm not too sure, but I don't want it to stick out too much. Lastly, with the front, something I might do really cheaply is add some kind of like lower ground effects for the bottom part of this front bumper. I'm not entirely sure what it would be like. Moving on to the side though, I can't think of too much that I would want to do with it. I mean, maybe some kind of side skirt, but it's really not high on the priority list, to be honest. I'd probably end up changing this turn signal lights to something that's LED rather than the halogen. Maybe once I get the matching mirrors here that also have power folding, maybe I can get like some kind of LED strip for that as a repeater. I'm not entirely sure. I don't really need that though, so that's not very high on the list either. What could have been high on the list, but I'm not entirely sure about, is the wheels, because when I was looking at a bunch of these 2006 and up Saab 9.5s, they all had basically a basic double Y style wheel. Those wheels did not look bad or anything, but they did add a bit of an incentive to do some kind of aftermarket style wheel. These Griffin wheels though, I absolutely love them. Like, if I had to change things about them, maybe they could be a little bit wider and maybe a little bit bigger, but otherwise I absolutely love this design. So it's really bumped the wheels a bit lower down on my priority list, simply because these ones look quite good. I mean, maybe if someone ends up sending me a good set of wheels that aren't too sporty, since this isn't going to be a full-blown sports car, but add a little bit more aggression to it with a bit of a touring look to it, maybe I'd consider something like that. But I do absolutely love these wheels. Adding spacers though would probably help a little bit with some of the stance. As far as the suspension, being that this car is an Aero trim, it means it already has a lower suspension. In fact, it's so low that it can't get up our set of ramps that we have. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with the suspension. Maybe I'd get like a new set anyway, just to have like a newer suspension to freshen up the car a little bit. But because this is an Aero and because it's in pretty good condition, it has bumped the suspension lower on my priority list. With the brakes on this vehicle, these are basically just stock brakes for the 9.5 Aero. However, I am considering some brake upgrades. What a lot of people do is that they'll actually take the brakes from a Chevy Cobalt SS and put those on, because those brakes are a bit bigger. So I would like to do something like that. Regardless though, what I will do with whatever brake calipers I run with, I'm gonna repaint them a certain color. So these ones are basically like a gray right now, just pretty basic. I would either repaint them to like a silver, or maybe I'll go with some kind of blue, almost like what's on the badges here. As for the glass of this vehicle, it's probably gonna get a window tint at some point. I mean, this is a bit of a fishbowl. Now let's look at the back. Now, being that this is a 9.5 Aero, I don't have as many desires to do a D badge on this car. Maybe I'll do it at some point, I'm not entirely sure. However, oh, fun fact, yeah, the wiper blade fell off. I don't know where it is, so I gotta get a new one. But otherwise, aside from fixing some of the cosmetic conditions and stuff on here, there's not too much that I want to do with the back end. Now, in terms of the lower part of it, it does have a single side exhaust here. I would like to go dual exhaust, one on each side, so I need a new system, and I also would need a lower diffuser here as well. So I have to figure out what I can do with that. I know the license plate lights, I have to get brighter ones because these ones are kind of dimming out. Maybe I'll go with some kind of LED or something, as long as they're not too bright. Speaking of that though, something else I would do, because I happen to see online a solution for a backup camera where the camera actually stuck out of the license plate light. And I would really like something like that, because that means I don't really have to drill into any other part of the trunk here. So if I can get something like that, I would very much appreciate it. The big change, I would suppose, would be with the tail lights, because I would actually like to do a bit of a custom fabrication with them in terms of the insides of them to get a different lighting design in them. Now, these lights, they're not bad. I mean, for 2006 and 2008 and whatever, they weren't bad, but I would like to go with something that has like a bit of an LED strip in it, both for like the braking and stuff, and the turn signals. I would like to go LED with that kind of upgrade. And I'm not just talking about one single LED bulb. I would like to go with like a full design inside. Maybe, depending on how it would look, and if I can find the right person for 3D printing and stuff, I would even replace this plastic with something that is clear. So I have like a frog eye lens. I know there's one Saab out there that has that, and it was like in a museum or something like that. So it would be really cool to have like the only one in the world that has a clear lens on it. So maybe we can work something like that out, or maybe someone watching happens to have some kind of inside information on that. I would love to know. Seeing these backup sensors reminds me that I do want to also get some kind of parking sensors in the front, just for the added peace of mind, I guess. So we'll see about that. Now, people don't buy cars like this for towing much. However, I would like to get a towing setup on it, so maybe have that kind of tow ball on it, get the wiring necessary for it, so that I could do maybe a little bit of towing with it. I'd have to look more into it so that I can actually tow safely with it. I believe the weight limit for this car is 3,500 pounds, but I don't want it to feel like I'm really straining the car when I'm on that 3,500 pound mark, because when you're towing, it is an extra liability, and I want to do it safely, and I want to even learn how to tow properly. So we'll see what I can do with that. This license plate, it is a standard issue one. I do have some custom license plate ideas in mind, so maybe I'll go with one of those. I have a few. I don't want to say them yet because I don't want people to snatch them up. However, they are available, and some of them are actually pretty cool. Something that our Lincoln MKT has, but this car doesn't have, is also LED accent lighting in various places, like around the door and stuff, in the footwell and stuff, even while you're driving. They're basically dim lights of a various color that you can have, and I would like something like that. It needs to be dim enough though, not something that sticks out a whole lot. So I would like to have something like that. Maybe if I can find the right solution that can be wired properly and actually look properly good, I would do something like that. This last lighting mod also segues a bit into the interior appearance with it, and that would be to have basically Rolls-Royce star headliner lighting on here. If you're not sure what that is, basically Rolls-Royces have optional this like starlight headliner that basically has like a night sky simulated. I would like to do something like that, maybe even have it a bit jet aviation themed with it. What you have to do is drop the headliner and wire in some fiber optics, poke some holes through the headliner, and then you can have something like that set up. I know Rob Ferretti has that on his really cheap Mercedes E-Class. I would love to have something like that on this car. And that leads me into some of the visual looks with it, and we're gonna start basically with the headliner, because I would like to wrap that headliner in something like a black suede or something like that. I'm not entirely sure what color I would go with. However, to have like a suede headliner would look a lot better. It would also add a bit more luxury to the interior, because a lot of more expensive cars do have a suede headliner. Much of the interior color may or may not change, I'm not entirely sure. I do like the black, however, I would be open to re-dyeing the leather to be a different color, maybe some kind of brown or something like that, similar to what's in a new Volvo these days. I'd want it to be more of a darker color rather than like a tan or something, because tan can be harder to work with, but to maybe have some kind of different color in parts of the interior, I don't know, I might mind that. It would help make the car look more unique as long as it's done properly. As for the condition of the leather, if I have enough money, maybe that'll change. Maybe I'll find the same kind of leather supplier as what's used for like the Pagani Huayra or something like that and put that here in this Saab. That would look kind of silly, but you know what? That would be kind of interesting, as long as I can still get the perforation for the ventilated seats. That is one thing I'm super proud of this car for having, because I figured at some point with the Saab 9.5 that I would try and wire in ventilated seats anyway, but luckily this one has it. The dashboard trim is basically the Aero silver. I'm probably going to keep it that way. If I happen to see something carbon fiber, maybe I'd consider it. However, I do really like the silver Aero look, so I don't really have any desires to change it. I do know there is an accessory button that can go here if I wanted to wire in more accessories to the car. Maybe I'd get something like that. It'd have to come from Sweden. If I happen to find something like that and I can buy it and the seller is willing to ship it to the US, I very well might consider it. These seats are pretty comfortable. Maybe I would consider adding some kind of massage function to them if I can get the seat taken apart properly and have it all wired in properly. Maybe it would be cool to have some massaging added on, just to add a bit of like that touring feel to it and a bit of comfort. The back seats have heating to them, however, it would be cool to have some kind of ventilation added as well. That would be like a very geeky project to try and figure out, but I don't even know if it's really possible, to be honest. We'll see. I want to address the sound system specifically in a couple different ways. One of which would be to maybe even upgrade the speakers a little bit and add a few more speakers in various places, including on the A-pillars, and part of what I would do with that would be to add some kind of active noise cancellation like what you would get on a bunch of newer cars, like a new Cadillac or something. As for the stereo unit itself, there are a few things that I have to do with it. First thing I have to do is to take off this whole head unit and take it apart so that I can take out the resistor that limits the auxiliary power, basically, so that it sounds better when you're using it with a smartphone. However, the other thing I could probably do at some point would be to add in an aftermarket satellite navigation system. So it would maybe have some kind of built-in sat nav. It can have Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, maybe a few other functions, maybe a few auxiliary stuff. HD radio would be nice to have, and it would be really good to have some kind of aftermarket system in here. But for now, something I have to focus on before I even go to an aftermarket system is to have a proper phone mount. And here's what I mean. Because I do have a CD mount that I sometimes put in here, but the problem is it does block a lot of stuff. However, there are some options as to having a mount that basically goes up here. I would like something like that. Depends on what I can get that's in my price point. I don't want to spend too much on it, but it would be nice to have some kind of mount up here, so that way it just stays out of the way and it stays up and in a good field of vision, and then I can have all the radio controls that I need. As to the actual colors around here, I think there could be some lights that need a bit of brightening. However, I don't really have any need to change some of the colors in here. Maybe I could go with some kind of blue or something for this screen here. I'm not entirely sure. However, it's not high on the priority list. Elsewhere for my field of vision, I could also add some kind of heads-up display here, because it would be nice to have something for speed here. If there's a heads-up display that would work with an aftermarket navigation system as well, that would be quite nice to have here, and then I can use it for like speed, directions, maybe even a bit of music information. I'm not sure, just kind of brainstorming, but it would be nice to have that. As for the steering wheel, a couple things I would like to do with it. One would be to add some kind of design to it to make it feel a bit thicker when you're holding it. So to add a bit more aggression to it, I suppose, that would be nice to have. It would also be nice maybe to change up some of the controls so that I can have what's for the Saab 9.3 in this one. Now, I mentioned this because whenever I were to get an aftermarket radio system in here with navigation and stuff, it would be nice to have something for basically voice control and the likes. So to have some different buttons on here to have voice control, accept, decline calls and stuff, that would be pretty nice to have. Remember, this is a bit of a fun car to drive, but it also has to have some level of practicality to it, and it would be nice to make it feel almost like a newer car. Window switches, not much to say here. It would be nice to have an auto up. It does have auto down for the front, but to have auto up would be nice as well. Funny thing is, I was talking to someone recently who was telling me about amateur radio. That is something I might actually want to learn a little bit of, so I'd have to figure out where the amateur radio stuff could also be mounted here, along with two-way radio stuff and maybe even a CB radio, because it would be nice to have some of that stuff for some rallies or some spirited drives or even just cruising by myself or something like that. I already mentioned the heads-up display. It would be also nice to have some kind of blind spot information system that goes around here, maybe some kind of rear cross traffic alert or something like that, kind of to help aid in that newer car feel. I don't really need it, but it would be cool to try and wire one of those in and kind of show how it's like having an aftermarket system. And then some kind of like forward collision warning. Maybe if comma.ai is available for this car, I could put something like that in. I don't know, we'll see. I do currently have a radar detector. I'm looking for a more expensive one to use though, because mine's a little bit cheap. However, it would be cool to have some kind of hardwired radar detector in here, and then maybe the lights for it would be like right around here or something, as well as a control panel being somewhere in here. And then also those kind of systems can also work as parking sensors, so if I'm driving through like Virginia or something like that, I don't need to have the radar thing active because it's illegal there anyway. Whatever radar detector I do put in here will be hardwired. There is also going to be the matter with the dash camera, because I do have a front-facing dash camera. However, I do want a front and rear and maybe a third one on my angle, just for my own safety, like if I'm getting pulled over or something like that. There's also the matter with this mirror here, because yes, the mirror doesn't seem special, but there is some importance to it. I do like having a compass. It does have home link and it has auto dimming, because this car does have the vision package. What I would like though would be to have all of those features, plus maybe a screen for like backup or something like that. Aftermarket navigation screen that could be like a front-facing camera or even some kind of 360 vision kind of thing, because that's also something I would like to do. Maybe even have something that's almost like the Tesla Sentry mode. So if you happen to know of a rear view mirror that happens to have home link, a compass, auto dimming, and a space for a backup camera, please let me know, because it has been hard to find one that has everything. If not, then I'll just stick with this one because it is pretty good overall. For the turn signal, I would like to get some kind of triple blink option. This car doesn't have that. We'll see. I can find something like that. There are a few other small interior things I would want to do. I know there are options as for a coat hanger kind of thing that you can have here. I'm not entirely sure. Those are all small things that I'll get to at some point, whatever. Now, one problem right now is that the hood struts are bad, so I can't really open up the hood. However, I would like to do a little bit of a respray on the engine, just so that it's not like the basic gray or something. Add a little bit of color to it. While I'm there, I might also change some of the vacuum hoses to something that's more silicone, like what we did in this car, because the vacuum hoses do get a little bit brittle, so it would be nice to have some kind of silicone hose on this. As far as some drivability stuff goes, I know I could get more power, like 20 horsepower, by sending out my ECU to a tuner that can do that for me. So what I'm actually trying to do is that if I find the right Saab 9.5 being parted out, I'm going to buy an ECU from that, marry it to this car using a Tech 2, something else that I might have to buy at some point for myself rather than having to borrow from other people, and I'd use a Tech 2 to marry that ECU to this car, so I basically have two ECUs for the car, and then I end up mailing that ECU out to a tuner that ends up doing a bunch of things to it, so that I also have a bit of safety, like if it happens to get bricked or something, the car's not completely screwed over. As far as handling stuff goes, one thing I learned is that this car does share some stuff in common with the Saturn LW, that kind of wagon. So what I could do is get one of the adjustable control arms for that, because these ones for some reason didn't have that. So to have some kind of changing control arms or sway bars and stuff like that, it would be nice to have a bit of an upgrade with that, just to tighten up the car a little bit more in the corner. Where I live in Pennsylvania, it actually is pretty underrated here for driving. Like, the roads that we have around here can actually be pretty fun, so it would be nice to tighten up the car a little bit more for that. And then also I have some plans for like autocross, and maybe if I get invited to like private track days and stuff, I would like to have a car slightly tightened up a little bit for that. And hey, if someone ends up sending me some kind of like aftermarket differential that I can use up fronts or something, or like a limited slip diff, I would love to have something like that. It is a pretty penny to have, but if I can get something like that, that would be pretty cool. I guess then I can also address the daily project angle from a few different ways. Like part of it can be comfort, part of it can be power, part of it can be handling, and maybe part of it can be an overall balance. But anyway, everyone, I hope that gives you a rundown of some of the stuff that I would like to do to my 2008 Saab 95 Aero SportCombi. The funny thing is, this is my third time or so filming this video because I just kept on thinking of new things. I didn't like how previous videos were filmed. Hopefully this is the take that actually gets uploaded. If not, well, I guess you guys will know when I mention that it's the fourth one. I don't know. We'll see. But if you guys have any other ideas on what I can do for some modifications, or if you even have some leads and stuff, please send me an email or comment down below. I would really love to get in touch with you. Maybe we can work something out. But for now, this is EA40. Thank you all for watching this video. I hope you're excited for the journey with this car, and I hope to see you on another video.